All right, boom, let's do this. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Money Talks. Well, the SEC is at it again. I feel so much more protected than I do a few minutes ago. Apparently, another Bitcoin ETF has been rejected. We'll get into that in a moment. First, look, again, welcome to Money Talks. This is the show where we get to have a frank conversation about all things happening in crypto, macro, anything we feel like talking about, the latest on Abra. And of course, we'll get into Cprx. So let's get into some news right away. As I said, breaking news right before the show started. The SEC has decided to reject VanEck spot Bitcoin ETF. Spot means that they would actually hold physical Bitcoin and give you actual price exposure. This is in direct contrast to the futures-based ETF that was approved a couple of weeks ago. This actually makes zero sense since a spot ETF is actually safer for consumers than a futures-based ETF. But since I do not run the SEC, my opinion amounts to zilch. Anyway, the bottom line is I can read it here right from the block. They just released it. U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission has rejected a proposed effort to list a spot Bitcoin exchange traded fund. The agency, which regulates securities markets in the U.S., had previously punted its final determination on their proposed fund, et cetera, et cetera. The most recent delay took place in September. And the SEC explicitly says, and this is the part I love, the order disapproves the proposed rule change. That's their lawyer legal speak for the ETF is not approved, et cetera, et cetera. And we conclude that BZX, I believe referring to VanEck, has not met its burden under the commission's rules. And now I'm paraphrasing. In particular, the requirement, and I'll read this verbatim, in particular, the requirement that the rules of a national security exchange be designed to prevent fraudulent and manipulative acts and practices and to protect investors and the public interest. Now, first of all, since when does an ETF exist in a way that is guaranteed to protect the public's interest and prevent fraudulent and manipulative acts and practices? I have a couple of examples for you. Number one, oil. Maybe you've heard of OPEC. I believe it stands for Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. It sounds like a fancy name for a group of countries that actually get together and manipulate the price of oil. Maybe. I have other examples, but we'll stop at that one since the oil market is massive and there are plenty of oil ETFs out there that you can buy that give you effectively spot price exposure to the price of a barrel of oil. There is absolutely no difference with that or providing exposure to the price of Bitcoin via a spot ETF. This is pure insanity. Now, I actually don't care one way or the other about this from a personal investment perspective, because I would never personally invest in Bitcoin through a stock market. It makes no sense. Bitcoin markets are open 24/7. They don't close. Stock markets are closed more than they're open. Why in the world would you invest in something that trades 24/7 via a vehicle that only trades 35 hours a week? It's ridiculous. Okay. But that doesn't mean that the public shouldn't have the right to do it, just like you do with gold and oil and other commodities that trade via stock-based or equity-based ETFs, exchange-traded funds. It's just common sense. Anyway, I get it. I get that this wasn't going to happen. I said weeks ago that the SEC has no intention of approving a spot ETF for Bitcoin or Ethereum anytime soon. And anyway, I hope you all feel, I'm sorry for being facetious. I can't help myself this morning and sarcastic, but I hope you feel protected. I certainly do. All right. So if I get any more news during the show, I'll bring it to you. But the bottom line is not only was the VanEck rejected, I expect all of the pending ETFs to be rejected. If any of them are not rejected, I suspect the ones that were rejected are going to sue, and this will end up in court, which, by the way, is where it's going to end up anyway. Eventually, some of these large players are going to sue the SEC, and they'll probably win. companies have a pretty good track record of beating the SEC when they go to court. Nobody likes to take the SEC to court, but I do have a gut feeling that this is where this is going to land. And again, as I said, even with the futures ETF, don't buy it, right? Just invest in Bitcoin. Even if you don't use Abra, which I can't understand why you wouldn't use Abra, don't buy Bitcoin through an ETF of any kind. Just buy the Bitcoin or put it in Abra and do what I do. Earn 3.15%. Next week, it'll be 8.15% yield when we launch Cprx. Why would you do this through an exchange that's closed 110 hours a week? As I said, it makes no sense. Okay, enough of that. We'll come back to this as more news develops. So a few other news updates. Pretty cool. A little lighter topic. AMC Theaters is going to accept Bitcoin, Ether for online payments. Hopefully, this will cause a flood of layer 2 based payments for merchants. I've spent a ton of time this year. It's almost been like a personal hobby outside of work. I know I should be doing things other than crypto on occasion, but Lightning has become a personal hobby of mine, understanding it, going deep. Some of you may not know my background is actually computer science, and it kind of keeps me current to understand what's going on. There's a whole bunch of Lightning tech that is tough to understand, but I'm digging in as much as I can. I have some concerns with the economics of Lightning, meaning what will motivate the node players to participate. But the technology is super interesting, and I really hope that we see just a rush to layer 2 with merchants and money transfer apps and even Abra over the next year or so. Okay, so kudos to AMC for helping to pave the way. I hope they accept every crypto out there for payment. Lots of other news this week. Let's see what else. So miners are really trying to migrate from China as quickly as possible. We're going to get into mining in a few minutes. Let's see. The Nine is moving a lot of their capacity over to North America. Big mining company. Their high-end miners will be online in the second quarter of next year. Kind of a recurring theme. If you go try to buy mining capacity via mining pool, for the most part, you're shut out until either next spring or next summer. So basically, in kind of investment parlance, you're buying a call option on mining next year, which could be a risky play because if all of these new mining rigs come online at once, the hash power is going to explode, which could cause a major reset in difficulty, which could make mining significantly less profitable by next summer. So keep that in mind if you're going to invest in mining. But it's really incredible how much mining power hash power is trying to move to the U.S. And that says a lot about the legal status of operating here versus in a totalitarian society or dictatorship, which is effectively what you had as a mining company operating in China. So other news, let's see. Oh, in India, right? So I saw this week that the Indian government is going to be sitting down with crypto companies. Now, India has tried to ban, by last count, they've tried to ban Bitcoin like 5 times. And each time they either get stopped by the courts and now they're getting slapped on the wrist by the courts saying, hey, we've already told you can't ban it. Why are you trying to ban it again? So I think they seem to have at least gotten the message this time that they can't outright ban it. So they're at least looking to start to work with companies on the ground in India to see what reasonable regulation might be necessary. Actually, the reasonable thing to do would be to do nothing, sit back and let the free market do its thing. And then if problems arise where there's either unfair markets or manipulation or consumers getting hurt because of fraudulent actions, then maybe you step in. But if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know what the technology is, the best course of action is actually to do nothing. We don't have this idea of a Hippocratic oath like we do in medicine, right? The first promise a doctor makes is to do no harm. But in politics, the concept doesn't exist. And maybe it's time that it did. And if sound money led the way because of private industry, that would be a very good thing for society. So let's hope that India does as little as possible and minimizes the harm going forward. But the fact that they're not trying to ban it, I suppose, is an interesting development. Back to my commentary on layer 2, I saw that a church in Idaho is now accepting donations via crypto for like over 10,000 members. My guess is that this is another Another example of people who want to make it easier for youth to play in the payment space, but are going to be forced into layer 2 tech because the fees are so high. And I think that's awesome. As I said before, I hope all of these companies really get into payments and money transfer as kind of the next phase of evolution of Bitcoin and Ethereum. So let's see what else. A couple more updates, and then I want to talk to you about some inflation news. So Russia, building on the theme of regulation now, they've created a committee to figure out how to regulate the mining industry and formally legalize it. I guess the idea is that in the United States, something is legal unless the courts decide that the courts or legislators decide that it's illegal. And it appears that in Russia, it's the opposite, right? Meaning it's illegal unless the government tells you it's legal. And to me, that's the definition of a totalitarian society. And Putin, who is an evil human being, has had a tight grip on the Russian economy, has become one of the richest people in the world through murder and other just horrible acts against his own people. And why there's no uprising there is beyond me. But he's just a horrible human being. And in any case, my guess is he's probably personally looking to profit off of the electricity grid as it relates to mining now, which is why you're going to see mining, quote unquote, legalized in Russia. Again, I'm feeling a little sarcastic today. Sorry about that. But I think the miners are smart for setting up shop in the United States right now. And I do think that the United States is going to become, again, the capital of the crypto world. I'm very encouraged by not only the groundswell in Miami, but mining that I'm seeing, mining shops setting up in Wyoming and in Texas and other places. And so kudos to all of you cowboys out there and cowgirls that are leading the way and trailblazing into the Wild West of the United States crypto. All right. So let's talk about inflation a little bit, right? So, look, I mean, you can't surf the web or look at crypto Twitter right now without hearing about inflation, right? So where do we start here? Let's talk about the chip shortage first. So I talked about mining, right? Mining is obviously dependent upon computer chips. As a reminder, mining is effectively a big game. Right, computers are actually playing a game against each other. For newbies, I liken it. Let's make pretend that we're going to play a game of Sudoku, and the game of Sudoku gets infinitely harder as more and more people try to play the game. And if less people are playing, the game gets easier. That's more or less what's happening with mining, right? All these computers are trying to solve a math problem at the same time, and the problem can get infinitely harder as more CPUs are trying to solve the problem. And as all of these computers in China stopped playing the game earlier this year, the game actually got easier, which is why the miners who are left over in the United States are making so much money right now. It's literally like manna falling from heaven. It's crazy, right? So it's not only crypto, right? The microchip shortage is affecting everything from automobile manufacturers and basically anything, right, that has a chip in it is being negatively affected by the chip shortage, right? So, look, a lot of people in the industry have blamed mining operations, but I've seen zero data to back up those claims, and so I don't buy that. I think it's just across the board massive shortages in mining. So, look, there's COVID related closures of chip production facilities, supply chain logistics. I spent a lot of time talking to friends in the mining space. There are a lot of issues with bringing new mining capacity online. Chips is just one of them. You have to get access to the power grid. You need to buy transformer technology. You need facilities, cooling setup, racks, massive amounts of real estate, potentially even, solar power, backup power. It's cooling. It's incredible, the logistics that go into setting up a mining facility right now. There's U.S. restrictions on China's largest chip manufacturer, SMIC. There's been a historic drought in Taiwan. Taiwan is the leader in semiconductor production. They're having their worst drought in decades, which is slowing the water dependent. Chip manufacturing is highly dependent on water, and obviously a drought slows that process. And of course, prices for raw materials have increased dramatically over the past year. So look, so major sellers of crypto mining hardware have simply been unable to replenish inventory quickly enough to keep up with demand. Prices on available hardware have increased significantly. Intel, Nvidia, AMD, they've all basically capitulated that the chip shortage is going to last for probably another year. That's a long time, right? Rising hardware costs are going to make some mining operations potentially untenable. We'll see. We've got a lot of moving parts. This is a multi-dimensional kind of math problem, but we'll see what happens. Bitcoin all-time high prices have been creating significant demand for hardware like mining rigs, full nodes, hardware wallets, et cetera, et cetera. And the crypto market has smashed, all of the records in spite of what's happening in the semiconductor industry. Now let's put chips aside for a second and just focus on inflation. Right now, while I think Bitcoin it came down and a little bit of a not a flash crash, but I think it fell like 1.5% on the SEC news. We'll come back to market analysis in a few minutes, but it's since recovered. And it's a non-issue, right? How many times does the SEC have to reject an ETF before we stop caring about it and we realize that it's not going to affect market prices at all? Anyway, we'll come back to the market analysis in a few minutes. I want to talk about inflation. I want to show you a couple of interesting tweets here. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see, Mr. Wizard, if I can get this to work. Usually I'm pretty good at this. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. And you can see here, Dan Moorhead had a really interesting tweet this morning. Hopefully you can see this. It's a year after 5 COVID-19 vaccines were produced, and the Fed is still buying $120 billion of mortgage and government debt per month. Let that sink in for a second. $120 billion per month. That's almost $1.5 trillion of mortgage and government debt per year, right? So this is now clearly counterproductive to the old objective of preserving the purchasing power of paper money. I read, I don't have it open. I wish I did. I'd show it to you. Arthur Hayes, the now indicted CEO of BitMEX, had an interesting comment this morning where he basically said, look, the unwritten mandate for the Fed, for the Fed's kind of children in different countries like Australia and Germany is basically to guarantee that their equivalent to their S&P 500 index simply continues to go up, because that is the barometer by which people feel good about their economy. Stock prices go down. You have the feeling that you have less money, less net worth. You go shopping less, you buy less, you worry more. Stock prices are going up. You have this feeling that everything's going good, even though 10% of the population controls well over 90% of the stock market. So that whole argument of stock go up is their mandate. It's not based on reality. It's based upon emotional manipulation, right? So here you can see the Fed balance sheets. We thought it was crazy in 2008 when they were bailing out the banks, but look what's happened since, right? The balance sheet has gone from 2 trillion to almost 9 trillion, up over a factor of 4 since the Lehman Brothers went bust. Another one on inflation, David Marcus, the head of Navi at Facebook. Inflation at 6.2% means that if we keep it steady for 10 years, your $100,000 will become $54,000 change by then. Read that again. Your $100,000 in 10 years becomes $54,800. Compounding works in both directions, right? It eats the value of your cash, but it can also add to the value of your net worth if you're investing or holding assets that go up in value, or at least in purchasing power, which is really the most important thing. Ultimately, money, as I've always said, is a way to store productivity. Us as workers are productive. We're compensated for that productivity. We can't spend the productivity in real time. We can't barter our productivity in real time for food and mortgages. So we take money instead. It's incumbent upon us that the money that we take in exchange for the productivity is equal or greater in value at some point in the future. Otherwise, what we're saying is our productivity is worth way less in the future than it is today. And that's not right. Okay, so that's why we want a deflationary asset for our money. And then lastly, and then I'll get off the inflation topic. Two more things. Good morning from Germany, where inflation pressure keeps rising. Selling prices in wholesale trade rose by 15.2% in October. Now that's crazy, but when you hear that it's the highest since March of 1974, right? Almost 40 years, right? Almost 50 years actually, after the first oil crisis, where the wholesale trade prices rose by almost 16%. Wholesale inflation mainly driven by increased prices for raw materials and immediate products. Now, I told you back in the summer, actually back in the spring, that the most vomit-inducing word being used this year by politicians was this word transitory. All right. Whenever I hear the word transitory, I have an equation that goes off in my head, which is transitory equals bullshit. And clearly, the government is now starting to admit that this idea that inflation was transitory is complete bullshit. And also that this 6% inflation number that they're currently spewing is also equally nonsense. And inflation is not going anywhere. Okay, so I'm going to turn this off here for a moment, stop the screen share back here. So enough on the tweets. But look, so what is the impact of all this? Obviously, price inflation leading to or currency inflation leading to price inflation is one reason why crypto is thriving, right? The network effects around crypto offset the fact that the dollar's buying power is dropping and more people are simply adding crypto as a hedge. And the network effects of crypto are outstripping the inflationary effects of the dollar for those who are holding the crypto. All right. And so, there are day-to-day price swings, which may make the correlation between inflation and crypto prices less clear. In other words, if crypto falls 30% in a pullback from an all-time high, it doesn't feel like an inflation hedge. But you have to really look at crypto on a log chart because it's doubling every few months for the last 10 years. Right. If you look at it from that log perspective or exponential growth perspective, the macro picture is very clear. The dollar is simply being debased. Risk on assets like stocks are simply an index on dollar printing, on dollar debasing. Okay. Deflationary assets, in particular Bitcoin, should continue to rise as network effects kick in. If you look at network effects via social media, for example, Google searches, right? The people who are interested in crypto is still at a fraction of what it was back in 2016 to 18. I think this is going to change. You're going to see when Bitcoin gets into the 80,000s, 90,000s, there's going to be a mad tulip gold rush for people who are excited about crypto. And we're going to see a spike in social media, Google searches on Bitcoin, and all hell is going to break loose. And the network effects are going to basically cause a massive melt up. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get this insane melt up into the, well over 150,000. And then, of course, capitulate back to, some more short-term reasonable number, but still at 64,000 and change where we are right now, or 63,000 and change, that's a significant run up. Okay. So thanks for listening to me talk about inflation. Let's talk about Cprx. So before we talk about Cprx, let me show you this video on the referral system, which has been killing it lately. We launched this new referral model for Abra. So check this out. All right, welcome back. So by the way, our team is doing a fantastic job with these really cool videos now. A lot of you would comment to me, why isn't Abra doing more to get the word out? And we've hired an awesome team now, people that's full-time on this. You're going to be seeing Abra out there quite a bit in the coming weeks and months. So I'm pretty excited about that. So yeah, it's the final countdown, right? So our massive exclusive Cprx Airdrop is just 3 days away. So on Monday, the 15th, we're airdropping 150 million Cprx to existing Abra users. As an Abra user, I am super excited about Crypto Perks. I get no extra benefit versus you. I get the same benefits you do. That's why I have all of my crypto in Abra. I earn my interest. I have liquid ready access to my crypto. And now, of course, I'm earning Cprx. So this is a one-time opportunity, right, for new and existing Abra users to earn Cprx for using Abra Trade, Abra Earn, Abra Borrow. It's super exciting. So we developed this rewards program called Abra Perks in partnership with this crypto banking alliance. The Crypto Banking Alliance is based in Switzerland. It's a nonprofit organization, and it's actually going to help a lot of other companies get into the crypto space via this cool Crypto Perks rewards token. And Abra is simply the first of many organizations and exchanges that are going to adopt Cprx. And you'll see the first of these exchanges coming online next week, which is super cool. So to power our rewards program, this CBA or Crypto Banking Alliance awarded a grant of the Cprx utility token to us to give to you, right? So Cprx, again, is their utility token that promotes crypto's safe adoption and application on wealth management platforms, DeFi, and other applications over time, retail, potentially credit card and rewards cards. And to show our appreciation to you, 100% of the token grant is going directly to Abra users. That's right, 100%. So we want to make sure you get all the rewards for using the app. Abra itself makes no money off of Cprx, right? We don't sell Cprx directly. You'll be able to buy and sell it in the app, but that's just you trading like any other cryptocurrency. So you can earn rewards for referring a friend, just like you saw in the video, or for funding your Abra account. So in fact, you can get, as you saw, $25 in Cprx for making a referral. Just log into the Abra app to get the referral link like you saw. And I've been doing it. It's super cool. The reward system, it's so much better than anything else I've tried in crypto. So when one of your friends uses the link to download their account with $15 and hold the balance for 1 month, both you and your friend get $25 paid in Cprx. That's super cool. You're going to get 2.5% back on every trade, also paid in Cprx. You're going to get, 5% bonus on all of your holdings in Abra Earn. You're going to get a 5% back, as we call it, negative loan interest. Just basically effectively means you're going to get a rebate of 5% back paid in Cprx on any borrowing you do via Abra Borrow, if you're in a location where Abra Borrow is available. And you keep asking, we do have more US states coming, and we have more international jurisdictions coming for Abra Borrow. Anyway, to keep it simple, the bottom line is pretty much anything you do to transact in the Abra app is going to earn you Cprx rewards. All right. And so if you haven't downloaded the Abra app yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. By the way, we've had record deposits into Abra this week. Bitcoin, Ethereum, stable coins, Cardano since we launched. Those of you outside the US who are still trading XRP, all of this has seen record volume this week. So thank you so much for the support. Keep the deposits coming. The Cprx rewards are being earned already. The airdrop's coming Monday, and the bonus rewards will kick in on Monday as well. So I want to get into a little bit of a market analysis as to what's going on in the market. And before I do, let's check out this really cool video on Abra Trade.
Trading on Abra is easy. Just click the exchange button. Tap the source you'd like to trade. Tap on what you'd like to trade it for. Type in the amount. Then click trade. Tap, type, trade. Totally easy on Abra.
All right. So what's going on in the crypto markets? Yeah. So as I said, the ETF caused kind of a almost instant pullback in crypto prices. So let me bring up my trusty chart here. Give me a moment. So while I'm talking, we've had mostly bit of a pullback, although it's really interesting. In the last kind of, I don't know, half an hour or 45 minutes since I started talking. Right before the show went live, we had a quick pullback. Actually, before I do that, let me just share the screen here because I think you deserve to see what I'm talking about in real time. So I will share this, bring up this, and in a moment you should see my screen. So normally I don't get into this super short-term stuff, but since this is happening while the show is going on, this is a 5-minute chart of Bitcoin. Right over here, where you see my little hand pointer, that happened right around the time when we went live. And you can see we've pretty much recovered since then, and actually even more, right? So the price went from, let's see, 62.3 back up to 63.4 in how many candles is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 candles, which is 50 minutes. Right. So we went up 1,000 points in 50 minutes. Now we fell 1,000 points in the same time frame, but we completely recovered. And right now, we've clearly got upwards momentum, and that may have been a short-term capitulation. We had a big spike in futures interest earlier this week. I'm going to get rid of this 5-minute thing. It makes me dizzy. Don't recommend spending a lot of time on 5-minute charts. It's crazy. Okay, so. Back to kind of long-term reality here. So I think that look, earlier this week, I think Monday, maybe up until probably Monday morning, there really wasn't a lot of kind of quote unquote greed in the market. And I define greed in the Bitcoin markets really looking at futures markets and looking at open interest and leverage in the system. And the markets weren't really over levered or didn't see a lot of open future interest relative to the price movements. Certainly not as much as we saw earlier this year when we were getting into the 60,000s for the first time. Now that changed throughout the course of the day on Monday, all right? And we saw a big kind of capitulation to the upside and then a big movement down very quickly, right, on Tuesday and Wednesday. And a lot of this was caused by the fact that we saw big open interest move into futures, particularly Bybit and Deribit and BitMEX and other places where the degenerate crypto gamblers tend to hang out. Okay, and that quickly corrected itself with a flush of spot markets. Okay, and that hasn't completely. Well, I was going to say that hasn't completely played itself out yet, but with this ETF rejection, it's possible that we've seen the bottom. I would say if we close, right here, this is kind of a floor. If I put a line here, what is this? This is about 63.1. I would say if we can close above here today, that would put us at about 63.56. I would say anything above 63.4, and the market has maintained a very short-term bullish posture. And I still expect, a big run up here because we're in a bullish stance. We still have a supply squeeze going on. The fundamentals that I've talked to you about since July have not changed. The recovery from the summer pullback has continued unabated. We were long overdue for a little bit of a pullback here. Honestly, we could even get to 55, which would be a 30% pullback from the 69K high, and we'd still be bullish, right? We had several 20 to 30K pullbacks last year. If I remind you all, you've probably forgotten already. If I come back here to, October of last year on the run up to 58K in February, we had several 20 to 30% pullbacks here, here. Anyway, so it's going to happen again. But I do think we're on a march to certainly somewhere in the 90s, at least this year, potentially 100,000. And as I said, what I'm really waiting for are those social media and Google search network effects. When they kick in, it's going to be Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, dog meme coin, overdrive like you've never seen before. And I mean never. It's going to be crazy. So that hasn't even started yet. So keep that in mind. It's coming. I don't know if it's going to come in. By the way, Bitcoin doesn't care about our yearly calendar. It doesn't know the difference between Q3, Q4, Q1, November, December, January. So when I say this year, look, it could be January, February, but I do think it's actually going to be this year that we're going to see well over 85K Bitcoin, potentially upper 90s Bitcoin, pull back and then scream into the hundreds next year. I have no crystal ball, but the social metrics are telling me that the network effects are just really about to kick into overdrive. Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop this first. Actually, let me talk about Ethereum first, and then I also wanted to talk about Wax because I got a couple of questions about Wax, and then I'm going to check the AMA. I know you all are asking a lot of questions right now, and I'm not ignoring the questions. I'll come back to them in a moment. All right. So let's talk about Ethereum up here. Ethereum. So this is the run up that started effectively in late September. So that was what, six weeks ago now. The upward channel has not been broken. This is exactly what you expect to see when something is melting up. I still think that Ethereum is on track, and the metrics for Ethereum are on track to outpace Bitcoin in the coming weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if we see 4x, 5x Ethereum in the same time that we see, let's say a 70 to 90% run up in Bitcoin price. I mean, that is a significant outpacing. Now, at the same time, Wax, which really has become, for me, one of the barometers of the altcoin space, has been an absolute tear the last couple of weeks. You can see that from early October, it went from 20 cents to today, it's up about almost 3x. And today it actually was up about 3x and pulled back this morning. And people are starting to realize that Wax is super interesting in the NFT space and is getting a lot of traction there. We're seeing a lot of volume this week in XRP. We still are able to offer XRP outside the US. I hope that we're able to get it back to the US soon. Now you can see here, right at the bottom, this shows relative volume. You can see that the volume has picked up in the last 2 weeks, right? And so what that tells me is that while we're in a consolidation phase here, if we get any, and I mean any, positive news on this Ripple SEC lawsuit, you are going to see an absolute tear of XRP to the upside. Now, I don't trade XRP. We can't list it in the US because of the SEC stuff going on, and our custodian won't allow it for the US, which I don't agree with, by the way, but we have to abide by it since it's simply not there to trade in the US. But fortunately, those of you outside the US are able to trade it. If you look at this long-term flag that's basically started forming since April, it's in month 7 now. What it's telling you is you're going to see a massive price movement in XRP in the coming weeks. And so my guess is that what you're probably going to see is a fake out where you could easily see XRP down here in the 80s and then literally spike into the $3. So I wish I had a way to pin this so that you could see it in another Money Talks episode in a few weeks, but I think you're going to see a huge breakout in XRP. So that's coming. And by the way, if the news is negative, I think you could see massive plummet in downward movement in the price of XRP. So just tread carefully. Don't trade money in these alts, including Wax. I hold Wax now, but I'm not going to hold Wax. I'm not willing to lose. I'm super excited about Wax. I'm super excited about Solana. We're going to be adding Solana to Abra. I don't have an exact date for you yet. I did confirm that it's coming. Shiba's coming, but I don't have dates for them. We generally don't pre-announce stuff on the listing side. But I do think we're going to see a pretty big run up in some of these alts in the coming weeks. Okay, so some of you were asking me to comment on XRP and Wax and Cardano. Cardano I didn't comment on, so let's see what's happening there. Not much. Let me zoom in here or zoom out a little bit. So yeah, we're in a consolidation pattern. It really needs to move up quickly. So I think that right now Solana looks more bullish to me than Cardano from a technical perspective. From a fundamentals perspective, I think it's a 3-horse race right now: Ethereum, Cardano, Solana, for kind of the killer layer 1 apps, with Wax basically being a niche player in the NFT space. and a few other niche players like Binance Chain is killing it with DeFi right now. We've been spending a lot of time analyzing Binance Chain and looking at DeFi, and that's super interesting. But in terms of kind of the core layer ones, I think it's Ethereum, Solana, Cardano, a little bit of BNB, but again, predominantly focused on DeFi. So I think you're going to see kind of Ethereum leading the way at some point, but Solana and Cardano probably outpacing Ethereum, but invest accordingly, right? The ones that are going up faster are also going to be more volatile on the way down, And if you can't stomach that, then the easiest thing to do is to have less money in the game. All right. So there was something else I wanted to show you and I forgot. So it'll come back to me in a second. Oh yeah. So I talked about Wax. I talked about the dog coins. Be very, very careful with the meme coins. I actually completely avoid trading the meme coins now. A lot of you do trade them, and that's totally fine. It's up to you. Some of you think it's fun. I think it's fun to track them, but it's very harrowing to trade these things because they can literally fall 70, 80, 90% in a day or in a week, right? And there was one a forked meme coin that I think literally went to zero a couple of weeks ago. And more or less, the people who created the fork made all the money at the expense of the early investors. And so we tend to not list that illiquid stuff at all. But be very careful if you're doing that on other exchanges with these illiquid meme coins. You can really lose all of your money, and not only lose it all, but lose it very quickly. And so in general, as I keep saying, when it comes to the meme coins, only trade what you're willing to lose, and don't treat them like long-term investments where you put it in on January 1st and expect to come back a year because you could find that your balance is zero. So trade in and out. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Cardano, I'm holding long-term. The others, I look at, multiple times a week. Wax, I'm holding kind of midterm, and we'll see if it becomes a long-term holding, but I'm very bullish on Wax. Okay. So if you have any questions on something you want me to dig into on the markets, I will do that. I'm going to spend a few minutes. I'm going to actually stop this screen share. Thanks for putting up with my analysis. And I'm going to take a few minutes of questions. And if you want to dig in anything on the Q&A, let me know. So before we do that, I do want to, I have one last video. We're kind of on video overdrive today. I want to show you a video on Abra Perks. So let's check this out.
A massive 150 million token airdrop is coming. You love Abra for making crypto simple, safe, and intuitive. And now there's another reason to be blown away by Abra. Introducing the Abra Perks Rewards Program, powered by Crypto Perks, Cprx. Cprx is a unique utility token, and it's happening soon. The more active you are in your Abra account, the more free tokens you'll earn. Here's how your perks start piling up. Trade and get perks. Earn interest and get perks. Take out a loan and get perks. You'll even get $25 in perks for inviting friends and family who fund an account. And every person who uses Abra before Cprx starts trading will be rewarded. So even new members will get their share of the big upcoming airdrop on November 15th, 2021. It's that simple. So get ready. The Abra Perks Rewards Program. It's all for you.
All right, welcome back. Hope you're liking the videos. They're really cool. Let's see. So a couple of things. I'm going to do a quick AMA here today. Don't have a huge amount of time. So put your wallet ID before the question, and I will read out your wallet ID. I think what I'm going to do today is I'm going to choose like the two best questions or my two favorite questions kind of at random. And you're each going to get $50 in Cprx. Okay. And then next week we'll do something a little bit different, but put that wallet ID in there. And if you want to remind others in the chat, if I don't see all the questions to do the same, then we can be fair to everyone. All right. So let's see. I'm going to try to scroll around at random here. Bojan asks 3417XSG. Long term, do I see the platform sustaining these high yields, 8 to 9% on stablecoins? Bojan, that's a great question. So you'll be in the running. But look, there's no guarantee, obviously, and you're not implying that there is on long-term yields. Let me kind of give you a couple of perspectives on what drives interest rates on stablecoins. So a lot of the borrowers of stablecoins are using Bitcoin and Ethereum as collateral. Now, who has Bitcoin and Ethereum to use as collateral? People who have obviously purchased Bitcoin and Ethereum and want to borrow against it, for example, common sense. Funds that are in the space of leveraging themselves by potentially giving us their Bitcoin and Ethereum, borrowing dollars and potentially investing in more Bitcoin and Ethereum or other altcoins. Miners is one of my favorites because they're sitting on tons of Bitcoin. They don't want to sell it, but they need to keep investing in hash power to keep up with the market. They'll stake their Bitcoin and borrow stablecoin dollars as stablecoins. Because a lot of these players that I'm mentioning can't borrow from banks, even though they're sitting on lots of collateral, that tends to keep the rates fairly high. The higher the price of Bitcoin goes, the more demand there is for dollars. So the last few weeks, the demand for dollars has gone up significantly, which is why you've seen the interest rate go up to 9%. Now, of course, when we add Cprx on top, that means you're going to be making 14%, which is phenomenal. Now, long term, the rates will be tied to two things: the model I just described, and also traditional banks' willingness to lend to these players. That will change over time, and you will see banks start to lend, but I think it's going to be quite a while. Okay, so it's not necessarily a direct answer, and long term can mean different things, right? But certainly for the short term, I think we're in good shape with reasonably high rates. And then long term, it really comes down to what the banks decide to do. All right. If you have a specific update on your ticket or you have a specific problem, you can use the Contact Us function in the Abra app. And generally, the response times are less than a couple of hours these days. The team is doing a phenomenal job. And here's a funny one. I haven't seen many of these. Dave Barnes wrote VFZ991J. I love the Abra t-shirt in the store. Thanks for offering them. Dave, we've got some really new cool designs coming later this year, early next year. You're going to see, we've got some really exciting stuff on the branding and design front for Abra. So I can't give too much away, but I'm pretty excited about that. I shared some stuff with the Abra team this week that's really cool. Let's see. Pick somebody else this time. Let's see. A lot of questions on rates, so I'm going to try to avoid the same question. Wow, so many good questions. I got to pick one. So Juan Cabanas wrote, Juan is SFLKHPR. Is there an easy way to see my holdings gain or loss in Abra? So Juan, that's a fantastic question. It's one of the most common questions I get about the Abra app. The problem with showing a gain and loss is that the vast majority of deposits into Abra are not for cash. They're for people already holding crypto. And since I don't know what you paid, or the app doesn't know what you paid for the crypto, we have no direct way to be able to show you the profit and loss. Now, we've toyed with the idea of letting you type in the price that you paid, but honestly, most people in our research wouldn't use it. It's too much work. And you're more or less on your own for tracking that at tax time to go back to the place you bought the crypto if you happen to sell it. Okay. So I would love to show you that. Like I said, the challenge is if I don't know what you paid for the crypto, or if Abra doesn't know what you paid for the crypto, there's no easy way to show you the P&L, the profit or loss for that position inside the app. I hope that makes sense. Let's see. More questions. Cynthia asks, Cynthia is JAN798M. How much will Cprx be valued at launch? So Cynthia, good question. CPRX will be traded on exchanges. So eventually the price will free float. That should start later next week. At initial launch, I believe the valuation will be about 15 cents, but then after that, the price will go up and down, just like any other token. So the airdrop, I think, will be based upon a price of 15 cents. The support team can correct me if my math is wrong in the channel, but I believe that's correct. And then at some time after launch, the price will free float based upon what we're seeing on the exchanges. Robert asks, Robert is 3M4X9VC. What is my opinion on Sushi Swap? So Robert, good question. It's been a couple of weeks since I've really looked at Sushi. Let me see if I can take a quick look while I'm talking here. It looks like Cardano insofar that it's in a consolidation pattern from its run up earlier this year, right? It's consolidating and nothing's changed since the last time I looked at it. While Bitcoin and Ethereum and the others have had a big run, the consolidation for Sushi continues. Now, what that tells me is that if we end up in another alt season, Sushi is going to skyrocket because that rubber band is winding super tight. And if you look at most of the other cryptos that had the run up back in the summer at the same time, they're in a similar consolidation pattern as Sushi, which means they're going to get a halo effect on the next run up. One of the exceptions is Rune because of Thorchain's recent launch. It had a spike. It was in the same consolidation pattern, but it had a big spike up about 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago when the system came back online. So that is my take on Sushi. Thanks for the question. Zoroaster85, his wallet is AXWCU8Q, asks, will CPRX be listed on exchanges before or after the airdrop on Monday? The answer is yes. We have several exchanges from what I've heard that will be listing CPRX starting later next week, which is awesome. And later next week, you'll get your values updated on how much CPRX you're being given via the airdrop on the app on Monday. And for most of you outside the US, it should be tradable later next week. In the US, it might take a few extra days, but eventually you'll all be able to trade it in the Abra app, but you'll also be able to trade it on other exchanges. Now, keep in mind, we don't control the Crypto Banking Alliance that issued the tokens does not control who lists the tokens. It's up to the exchanges to do that. But from what I've heard, there are several exchanges that are going to be listing CPRX. That is awesome. Joe Chadwick asks, will you be adding Solana and will I be able to earn yield on Solana? So Joe, we are definitely adding Solana to Abra. I don't have a date for when it will happen. And I'm guessing that there will be eventually a yield on Solana as well. So stay tuned for that. At a minimum, there should be crypto perks yield for it. Hopefully there'll be in-kind yield paid in Solana as well, but I don't have any details on that just yet. All right. Let's see, take some more questions. Maybe there's some questions from earlier in the show that I missed. So let me scroll to the top here. All right. There's a lot of comments on Digibyte. We got a lot of hardcore Digibyte holders, users, fans in Abra. And so really appreciate your loyalty. And Johannes wrote, I'm fed up. I got the joke. So am I. They are not your friend and they are not looking out for you. They are an extension of the system, and the system is trying to control you by making you believe that your money is worth something. And if you keep your money in cash, as Mr. Dalio likes to say, cash is trash. Your cash is trash. So that's why I am irresponsibly long Bitcoin and Ethereum. All right, let's see here. Somebody said, I no longer get the Thursday email notice for money talks. How can I get this reestablished? So unless you unsubscribe from the email, we don't change that. So you might want to go back to one of the old emails, add Abra to your address book, whatever the from email is. Go into Gmail and make sure it's not marked as spam, and or check your spam folder. So we don't actually proactively delete emails. You would have to unsubscribe. You can also go back to the webpage and try to resubscribe. But my guess is you've got a spam filter problem. All right. So a little email tech support there. I'm a full service provider. Let's see how Trevor asks. Trevor is KRC GYHZ. I may have gotten that wrong. KRC GYHZ. Good morning, Trevor. How will CPRX rewards change after the airdrop from how they are before the airdrop? Okay, Trevor, as I said, you will get the airdrop on Monday. If you are an existing Abra user, after Monday, as you saw in the videos, you will get 2.5% rewards in CPRX for trades. You will get 5% bonus on any crypto or stable coins you hold in Abra Earn. You will get 5% cashback as negative interest on any borrowing you do via Abra Borrow. And you will get $25 paid in CPRX for any referrals who deposit into Abra. And that is a 2-month bonus with those higher payouts. And the CPRX bonuses I just described will stabilize back at some point in January. And we'll announce those rates then. But all of the bonuses I just described kick in on Monday. All right. SMLZ893 asks, will Sand be available on Abra? That one I actually don't know about. I haven't seen any plans for Sand yet. I'm sure the team is looking at it. And Robert asks again, VETZ8VZ, has Abra taken into consideration allowing IRAs to trade through Abra? The answer is yes, we have. We're looking at it. I suspect some point next year, you will see IRA support. For those of you outside the US, an IRA is an American investment retirement account that has special tax treatment. You don't pay taxes while the money stays in the IRA on any gains. The taxes are deferred. And yes, I believe we are going to be adding IRA support to Abra next year, but I don't have a date for you. It's a very common request. All right. I'm going to take one more question. We're going on 1 hour. I'm going to take a question from Juan. Juan is my first Crypto Perks winner for today. SFLKHPR. How often do I expect rates to change in Abra? One, I have no expectation on rate changes in Abra. The rates change as the markets change. We have a committee that meets every week that looks at the markets, looks at the rates, looks at our lending portfolio, and makes decisions about interest rates, and then either raises or lowers rates. If the markets are changing dramatically midweek, we may have an interim meeting to either raise or lower rates, but generally we look at them weekly, but they don't change very often right now. We try to keep them stable, but the markets tend to dictate the rates. Okay. All right. So with that, we're going to stop and let you have. I got to take this one. Well, Beastie asks, will Face ID and Touch ID come to the app? Beastie, Face ID and Touch ID are live in the app now. So because you're helping your fellow Abra users to protect their money, you're going to be our second winner for today. Beastie's wallet ID is WX24B6L. Beastie is our second and final CPRX winner for the day. And yes, the answer is if you go into wallet security, you can turn on Face ID directly in the Abra app. I use it. It opens up the app even 10 times faster than typing in your PIN code. It is awesome. All right. All right. So that's it for Money Talks for today. Thank you so much for the support, the great questions. The deposit volumes have been, as I said, off the charts. I can't express enough the gratitude of the Abra team, and to see all of our hard work paying off is extremely rewarding. And so we thank you all for that. And we're going to have a really fun show next week after CPRX launches. We're going to get into what's going on there. I'll talk about other exchanges. We'll probably do a couple of demos regarding CPRX, and probably even have some folks from the Abra team on the show as well. And then the week after, we actually have a couple of outside guests planned, which I'm really excited about. Okay. All right. So in the meantime, have a great weekend. Right. Be safe. And we'll see you next week on Money Talks. All right. Peace. Take care, everyone.